Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Etech Leadership Table. This is a podcast where we invite you to pull up a chair, grab a cup of coffee, and join us as we tackle some remarkable discussions on everything leadership. I'm Melissa Wood. I'm your host. I'm the Dean of Leadership Development at Etech Global Services. Welcome again to the Etech Leadership Table, and I am just going to go right to it, kind of like a shark attack, you know. Jason Cutter we have here, and he's going to talk about being authentic, right? How to have empathy, when we were talking about leadership skills and sales skills. So welcome to the Etech for your first time Etech Leadership Table, Jason Cutter.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited, especially because I know that we're just going to have a blast talking about stuff. Whatever it is, it's going to be fun.
Hey, we're going to have a really good time talking about several things. And before our podcasters got onto the table and pulled up, we were already talking about that shark behind you. So let me just cut it to the chase. That's why I made the shark comment. Jason used to tag sharks. Let me say that again. For those of you that just joined the podcast, that maybe were scooting your chair up to the table and you didn't hear what I said. See, you hear it here first. Jason Cutter was tagging sharks back in the day. Do you hear me? Tagging sharks back in the day. Jason, welcome to the table. Is that something that as a young man, you're like, one day I'm going to do this? Like, how does that happen? Tell me about that.
Well, it was a transition somewhere in early high school, freshman year, where I went from a dinosaur science kid to a marine biology science kid. I had a general biology class as a freshman in high school, and one of the segments was marine biology. And the teacher that I had was amazing. He was that one teacher that people have that will inspire them to then go into a subject, whatever that subject is.
Yes.
He even took me to the aquarium in San Francisco, where the head shark researcher at the time, who I'd read all of his books, was speaking. So I got to meet him and get a book, and that just sent me on that path for marine biology and we can talk about it or not, but not with any specific goal. I didn't have a job in mind. I didn't have a career path. I don't come from I was the first one in my family to go and finish college out of everybody, second cousins, third cousins, aunts,
Seriously?
uncles, everybody. Yeah. So there wasn't this part of our family where it's okay, so what are you going to do with this? No, it was nobody's ever got a degree. You need to get a degree. What you do with it, I don't know, but you just go get a degree, because my parents didn't have one. And so, sharks are fun to play with, but, having a career in it is a bit different.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, I believe we learn from so many areas. And so I can probably, you got into sales, right? And I can pretty much imagine some things that you dealt with, even just tagging sharks you've taken into your sales career over the years. So if you're sitting at the podcast with us today, let me tell you a little bit about Jason. I'm not going to make him tell you himself, because I want you to understand who's at the table. Jason is an author of several different books, right? And I love the titles of your book. I even went and I'm going to download and have you send me some of those books so I can get a look on them. But you wrote the book that says Selling with Authentic Persuasion, hence the shirt that you've got, right? Yeah. So there's a difference. People sell, and I've been listening to, that's the other thing, your podcast, you're a phenomenal podcaster. So selling with authentic persuasion. Number 2, reasons to not focus on sales experience. And the 3, the voices of leadership. Those are just already some things that he's done. And then the whole new world of ebooks. You are nailing it on these ebooks, Jason Cutter.
Yeah.
I started, those ebooks are motivating your sales team, overcoming objections. I really like the tag that you put, so we both win. And then being a new sales team lead. That's the one I've applied to take a look at. Being a new sales team lead. I think those are awesome. Just like we said earlier, he went from West Coast to East Coast, right? But still by the water. If the shark doesn't tell you enough, I think he has fins. He's got to be by the water. Kind of a Bethany Hamilton experience, he's going to be in the water somewhere, and he's going to be in the water of sales. because that is where he's made to be. So, and then he's just taken that sales experience and turned it into, there's really more to you than just sales. And I know you don't like to just come out and say that, but this whole leadership development that you've been inspiring, that's coming through in your books, it's coming through in your podcasts, it's coming through in your blogs, just the people leadership side is phenomenal. And you said you were tagging sharks so that you didn't have to talk to people. Well, you really learned some authenticity around dealing with people. And I'm just happy that you pulled up to the table today just to chat and just have a good time, right? So thanks again for being here. And so there's some things about Jason. One of the things I've learned about him, he says, leave people better than I found them. Leave people better than I found them is to show you his heart a little bit. When you're sitting around the table with someone, you want to know their heart. So he wants to leave you better than he found you, wants to leave me better than he found me. And so that's what we get to do at the table today. And I took some other notes, but Jason, I think you need to tag this or put it on a shirt. Are you ready?
Okay.
I think this is my favorite ever Jason Cutter quote.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody's ever told you this, but it says, I'm an ops-minded person selling sales in a way that doesn't feel gross.
Yep.
I think that is it. I think that put the nail on the head. So that goes into our topic today of your selling game with empathy and authenticity, right? And that's where your sweet spot is. So we're ready to talk about being empathetic, authentic, and empathetic. So as you're sitting at the table, tell our podcasters, what are you drinking? What are you drinking? Because they pulled up with something to drink. What are you drinking today?
On the table physically, I have some water and some Celsius energy drinks, although I don't know if I need it, but that's what I've got.
Now, do you stand up when you come on these podcasts as a guest?
I do. Yep. Standing up.
All right. And I heard before, I just want our viewers to understand that you really, other than tagging sharks, you've got an array of experience everywhere. And you said you were in Iraq, Kuwait. You were out in the desert there for a little while. You want to tell us a little bit about that? What'd you learn from that?
Well, so we go through a little bit of the path. I won't go through the whole thing, but when I got my degree in marine biology, I had been working with tagging sharks, catching sharks, and doing research for years in college. And then when I graduated, I was looking for a job in marine biology. Like, let me keep doing this. And the only job I could find was $8 an hour scrubbing boats for the fish and game department there. And literally, I couldn't get the job. They gave it to a master's student. So, because at that point, we're talking like late 90s, everyone wanted to go to work at SeaWorld. Everyone wanted to play with the dolphins. Everyone wanted to do all that. And literally, I couldn't get an $8 an hour job scrubbing boats without a master's. And I'm like, at the time, I said, I'm burnt out. I am tired of school. I'm burnt out. In retrospect, I realized I was not on the right path, but it felt like burnout, right? And if you study burnout, it's typically because somebody's doing the wrong thing. Because if you're going the right direction, there is no burnout, right? You might need a break every once in a while, but you don't get burnt out when it's the right path. And at the time, I was working in a restaurant. I realized I actually was pretty good with people, even hungry people. And so then ended up moving to Seattle. I thought I wanted to be in tech, so I got a job at Microsoft doing tech support back when that was still done in the US. In fact, after 2 years, we all lost our jobs to offshore for the first time ever. Like, we helped train the people in India and China who then took all of our jobs. All of us got fired in 2002. So then I needed a job, and I realized I didn't want to be in tech. And then I ended up going to work at a mortgage company. It was the real estate boom in 2002, so it was order taking. There was no sales involved. Did that for a few years, and then got into sales leadership, and there's a whole bunch of things that transpired there. And then just didn't know what I wanted to do. Didn't think I wanted to be in business or sales. Ran away from that. And took an opportunity to work overseas as a civilian, but working with the military. So I spent 4 years in some pretty hot, dirty places, going back and forth, and then realized, no, wait, what I do love is training and teaching and system building and helping people. And then I went back to school to get my MBA, and then went to work for a company, and then leveraged that into consulting.
I want to thank you for sharing that with us. I know I pulled it right out of you, but I want our podcasters, and I want to remind you that all these steps that you've taken back led you to where you are today. And just to remind you that you don't just read a book or to take one job, to actually put all this together, all these different unique experiences to help you how to be authentic with people, right? Well, so it took all those experiences.
And the biggest thing, and I just want to jump in, sorry to cut you off, but like, here was the biggest thing for me is up until a certain point, I remember sitting in Afghanistan, I was working, I worked on an airplane. We did some aerial work. And so we're kind of trapped in the plane for a long period of time. Up to that point, I felt like a complete failure in all ways in life, right? Married, divorced, sitting in Afghanistan with a marine biology degree with no direction, no path in life, like just a windy, messy path, right? I would meet people, this is as an adult, I would meet people, I'm like, hey, what do you do? Oh, I went to school and I got my degree and now I do that job and I've been doing that job for 20 years. And I'm like, yeah, that's not me. I'm a big fat failure, right? Like that, yeah. I like literally didn't want to tell anybody what I did. I mean, when I was in community college, I was like cleaning fish tanks for a living at Chinese restaurants and lawyers' offices and like just all kinds of stuff. And then I realized, I was like, it was a really deep conversation I was having with one of my coworkers at work. And I realized, I was like, wait a second, everything that I've been through has made it so that A, I understand a lot more of the world. And then B, I can talk to anybody about anything. Like you want to talk about some crazy stuff, like we can talk about it. Like I have all kinds of topics in my head from my experiences and the things that I've seen and I've done versus somebody who maybe just go to school, one path, they're going on that path. There's nothing wrong with that, but like, are they wide or are they narrow and deep? And then I just realized, I was like, holy cow, this is what makes me so effective at understanding people, helping people, empathizing, helping businesses, just because I've seen it. And that it was at that moment I went, oh, this is not a negative. This is actually a strength because of my messy, windy path.
That's it. That's exactly what I was trying to pull out. That's what I was trying to show, that's what led you here, like all of our paths. And then I was listening to, I don't know if you listen to Craig Rochelle, he has a podcast as well, but he calls it failing actively, not passively. He says if you're not failing, you're probably playing it a little too safe.
100%.
Okay, so I love that you have failed actively and that you are authentic and saying, I've got a degree in marine biology and I'm in the desert, and here I am. Right. And just being real. And that's why I wanted to see you today. That's why I wanted to meet you, put you on the podcast, because, you can wear a shirt that says authentic, but you're Jason Cutter's the real deal. He really is authentic. And I wanted to spend a lot of time just really talking about his journey here, because sometimes you'll see him on podcasts. He does his own podcast. We don't get to hear a lot about his journey here. We get to reap the benefits of his journey. These books he writes, and even the online courses you've created. I haven't even got into that yet. Those are amazing. But those are us reaping the benefits of your journey. So it takes, I just have a few questions for you that I want everybody to take notes. You better get your notes together. First of all, we got an authentic leader here that has failed actively. So let that be an inspiration to you. He has failed actively, and we're able to reap the benefits at this table. And he's going to answer a few questions for us that I know you've been asking and that our listeners want to hear the answer to. So grab your drink. Let's do this. It's about empathy and authenticity in the selling game. All right. That's what we're going to talk about. And so first question, you ready to catch it? You ready to catch the first question?
Let's go.
Okay. So when we talk about being a sales professional, there's all kinds of, misconceptions about being a sales professional. How can empathy and authenticity, how can they put it in their selling process to establish stronger connections? Give me some practical strategies, how to put empathy and authenticity together.
The biggest thing that you can do, and it's really the opposite of what most people in sales end up doing as a default, is you do those things early in the process. Like they say early and often, but you do it early in the process. Here's the thing, and this is one of the reasons why I feel that sales feels gross, especially when it's done wrong, is salespeople by default think their job is to be the hero, make themselves seem great, talk about how amazing they are, their company, their product, how they're there to save the day, and or just twist your arm, and that's all the gross manipulation stuff. But what they do is they want to talk about themselves, and when it's done really wrong, you can tell they literally don't care about you. They only care about themselves and getting you to buy from them. And the problem is that everybody is human. Humans are self-centered. Humans see themselves as the center of the universe, and humans only care about themselves, right? Like, we're a part of a tribe, but at the base level, if you're not careful, you truly only care about yourself. And so what happens is that potential customer, that person you're dealing with, and we can translate this into leadership, because sales is leadership of a prospect, just like leaders are leaders of people.
Right.
But the thing is they just care about themselves, that person. So when you're interacting with them, you want to know about them. You want them to make sure that they feel like you care. And here's the authentic part, is actually care, not pretend to care, but actually care. There's a lot of people who pretend to care, and you can feel it, and it just oozes this thing that's not pleasant. That's where you have to actually care and be authentic from a place of genuine caring. And then the empathy part means I want to know where you're at. I want to know where you would rather be, out of pain or in, towards gain. And then I want to know if there's an intersection of what I have to offer. And that's why, like, part of my mission statement, and really where I see sales is, it's the goal, like you said early on, is to leave people better than I found them. Maybe it means selling you. Maybe it means giving you advice. Maybe it means not selling you. Maybe it means telling you to stop talking to people so you don't buy anything from anyone else in this category, because you're just going to make the wrong decision. But it's that, right? Like, and it's because of the empathy side, which is I care about you as a human. I want to see you get to a better place, and then we're going to do that. And so that has to happen before I start talking about myself and how amazing I am and how I'm here to save the day. Like, that part is necessary for credibility and trust, but you do that after you do those other steps.
Truth. Authentic truth. That's what that is. You can see it in your face, even on a podcast, you can just see that it's truth, right? And that's what makes it not gross. That's what makes it not gross. If you're sitting at the table with us and you're coming in here for sales 101, right? On this empathy and authenticity, I mean, this is truth. Like, you can see it in his face. You can kind of feel it, even through a podcast, that's what makes it not gross. It's just the truth of it, right? Just making a friend and being a friend, whether we sell you something or no.
And the big key though is, and you have to have a process, right? We might talk about it or not, but what I don't want people to think is, okay, so if I'm genuine and I'm authentic and I care about people and I'm empathetic, like, that will be enough to close deals. Like, Bob Berg wrote a book called The Go-Giver. A lot of people have read it and they understand it. There's a part, and he says, when all things are equal, people will do business with people they know, like, and trust. And so a lot of times I see people who think, okay, as long as someone knows and likes me, they're going to trust me and they'll buy from me. I can just sit around and they'll just hand me money. And no, you will be very broke, living under a bridge or in a different job, because you'll basically become a very nice order taker that people like, which is why the subtitle for my main book is, it's Selling with Authentic Persuasion, Transformed from Order Taker to Quota Breaker, because I see a lot of people who have decided, thankfully, not to do the gross, terrible stuff that they think sales is required. So they go the other way, which is so relational that they become order takers, and then it doesn't serve anybody.
Yeah. So Patrick Lencioni, I'm not sure if you've met him or seen any of his writings, he calls them lovable slackers. Lovable slackers. Like, you just love them, but you're not getting anything from them. So there's a lot of, we were looking to build a home, and there's a lot of contractors I loved, right? But they didn't know how to measure. So that's a problem,
Yeah.
If you're going to build a house that looks like the Three Stooges built it, I'm not going to do business with you, right? So I think that is definitely true. You made me think about, in one of your teachings, you have become, all this experience, you've become a wonderful teacher. And I'm telling you this in truth, because I took notes about what you just said. You said the iceberg, people use the iceberg method everywhere. And what they see, that empathy and authenticity at the top, but you said you can't leave out the process. You said there's like 24 steps in a process of that iceberg. that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So I think we do get overbalanced. Okay. So some salespeople, they think that if they use this empathy and authenticity, that they're going to look like a weak salesperson because, it makes them look weak. So
yep.
How would you address the concerns of these salespeople on the podcast today that they're like, how do you balance that? How do you balance not looking like over friendly and over weak with you actually having the knowledge, putting those two together?
It's tough because when I interpret what you're asking, I'm visualizing that old school classic shark, just pushy, overbearing salesperson that it's like, I don't care about you as a person. I'm just trying to make this sale, right? Whether it's a transactional thing or it's a longer consultative sale, just that kind of person, right? This Wall Street, shark that's just like, I don't really care. I'm not going to show weakness. If you sense weakness, you're going to try to so that's one extreme. And I don't think that's, in your heart and what you're asking, but I have seen that where that person's just like, I don't want to come across as too nice. Here's the fundamental thing. And this is what's so big and has shifted so much even recently to make sales A, different, and B, hard, is that you have to care about people. You have to build those relationships, even if it's short term, even if for some reason I'm selling something and it's a one call close. Maybe we're going to talk for 30 minutes and then I will never talk to you again. You still have to do it the same way. And here's the reason why, and this is why it's so important for that part, is because of this thing. Because of the fact that we all have all the access to all the information in the world at our fingertips, you can't assume that somebody needs you for information. They want you for wisdom and help, right? Like you and I remember a time where if I wanted to go buy something, I had to go to the store and put up with some salesperson to find out how something works and what are the options and what's the price.
Right.
And then do I want to do that, right? Like buying a car back in the day, I didn't like you. I'm going to go to the next dealership and I got to put up with, I don't know what I'm going to get, but or if I'm really desperate, I'm going to go through your crap because I really need the car and who knows what's going to happen to me. And so the going back to your question though, is you have to actually care. And it is so valuable, right? And this, it sounds cliche, but it's so true. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Like that, again, that sounds cheesy and cliche and woo-woo and soft and like what is this guy trying to no, that's all that matters. Like you're not going to listen to me until you know that I actually care about you and I want to get you somewhere better than you are right now. And then once we get to that point, then you're going to listen to me, right? Then you're actually going to take my advice. One of the biggest things, and I use this analogy a lot when I do trainings and work with teams and individuals, is think about the experience when you go to the doctor. What if the doctor walked in and all they did was talk about themselves and how amazing they were and their certificates and their awards and their degrees for 10, 15 minutes? That's all they did. You'd be like, wait, this is about me. I'm the one that paid this copay. I'm sitting here on this plastic paper thing for a half hour. Shut up and just listen to me. I'm the one with the problems, right? That's what we would do. And doctors don't walk in and do that. I mean, part of it, you trust that they are certified. That's why they're there. Yeah. And then the other part is that you don't care about them at that moment. You want them to care about you and understand you and then get to know your issue and then they can explain it, which is the same reason sometimes what happens is we say, oh, that doctor had a terrible bedside manner and maybe I don't like them or maybe I'm going to tolerate it, but it's because they're not doing the caring part. And you're like, okay, you're an expert, but I don't like you. This feels gross. And it's the same thing that you can translate to sales.
That perfect analogy on the doctor. And it does feel gross. And we've much of us have experienced that. It does definitely feel gross. At Etech, I don't know if you know this about our company, but we could have chose any leadership philosophy in the world. You can choose any type of leadership philosophy, but our president of our company, Matt Rocco, he chose a servant leadership philosophy. That's what we choose from. We've cascaded that bottom up, top down. Everything is about serving each other, right? About serving. So, he even mentioned Jesus Christ. He's like, believe it or not, he's a figure that shows us about those who want to be first will be last, and those who want to be last will be first, right? And about how you serve your teams. And I think that's what you're talking about. And that's why we have this connection. I know that's why Jim Aoub connected us together is because what you're saying about leaving people better than they are, that's what our company believes in. That's what we make money. We do very well. Those are all of our credentials, but we do it because we do life together and we care about each other first. So I think that's what makes our connections so wonderful. So that's our story. So tell me about, you go and help these other companies, right? And you go and help these other leaders and sales teams. Tell me, do you have a success story where you can tell me where you transformed their selling game, where they were starting to embrace empathy and authenticity? Can you just kind of share with us that success story?
100%. A couple come to mind. One was on the one extreme, a B2B SaaS company, small team, one of those founder-led, founder-created, founder's the top salesperson, but now developing out a team, has a team of some people in there. And then they're just kind of selling how they're selling, but they're, in that hero mode, and here's what we do, and you should want this. And then helping them realize, no, what sales means is you've got to understand their situation. And really, it's that discovery portion, which I call empathy because we're going to ask questions because we care. But it's that discovery portion that what they were doing, which so many do, is they just gloss over that. Ask a few questions, check some boxes. This is great. I got what I need. Let me tell you why we're amazing, right? And skipping to that step. And instead, kind of going back to that doctor analogy, which is, okay, if you have a doctor's appointment, you want them to spend 14 minutes asking you questions out of that 15 minutes and poking and prodding and you want them to do their due diligence for 14 minutes. And then the last minute, okay, here's what's wrong. Here's what you need to do. Here's a prescription or here's surgery. And then let's go, right? That's what you want. And so shifted them from that, where it's if you have this 30-minute video demo kind of meeting, nobody needs the slides. People sold for millions of years without a slide deck, right? What you got to understand is what do they need and want, and then how can you help them, and really why. And then once you do, it's easy. And so what happens is we rebuilt things, focused on that, and then started expanding. And then on the other example that I have, which is a different extreme, kind of going back to what I said, was this company, B2B marketing company, run by two guys that were ex-Wall Street broker types. And I was like, okay, these guys are not going to like what I'm going to tell them. This whole empathy thing and authenticity. And I'm like, okay, they hired me, they know me, but I don't know if they're really going to if they're going to like this. And it was amazing because they not only did they appreciate it and like it, and they took notes, and this is the two owners, especially, not just the team. Then when we'd have a meeting the following week, they'd be like, we put what you said in place and it works so much better. About putting people first instead of trying to be the hero. They were like, wow, that works so much better. I'm like, yeah. I mean, old school might have worked a long time ago, but actually care about people and then ask questions and then just solve a problem. And then the rest of it, as I say, is just paperwork. At some point, when you do it right, the rest of it's just paperwork. Yeah.
And, I wish people would have known this a long time ago. You don't have to go to bed feeling gross, right? From what if you're selling, you don't have to go to sleep at night feeling gross. You can literally make friends, literally offer solutions that you see work. And I know that was probably a big breath of fresh air for you when they're like, this actually works. Oh my gosh, Jason, this actually works. It's just putting, we call it in Texas. I know you can tell by my accent, I'm not from California or Florida. What? It's that New York accent, that throws people off a little bit. But in Texas, I call it get your boots muddy, right? So you're out there teaching them about empathy and putting people first, but you said something that the founders did. They went and applied it. And in Texas, I call that get your boots muddy. They actually got their boots muddy. Because when you're in Texas and you see somebody with clean boots, that just means they're not doing anything. They can talk a good game. They can talk a good game, but they're not actually doing it. And I think that's the key. Somehow you were able to just energize them to go put this into practice. It's not just a thought. Instead of being hearers of it, being doers of it. So I think that's how you turn those companies around. I think that's wonderful. What else? If you could leave us with, I wish we could sit at the table longer. We'll have to come back and sit at the table. And I haven't seen you drink your energy drink, and you still have so much energy. How's that even happen?
I told you I didn't need it. I don't know why I got it, but I obviously don't need it.
Jim says I don't need my energy drink either, so I have a tall glass of water here. But Is there anything else you want me to know or our listeners to know when it comes to that empathy and authenticity? Like anything you want to leave us with?
All right, this is just for you. Don't tell anyone else, because this is what
Won't
people
say a
pay
word.
me for. So, just
Okay.
hit the mute right now. Just kidding. No, here's the biggest thing is it's kind of a bridge from what you said a few minutes ago about going to bed and feeling gross or not wanting to, or the, how can you sleep at night if you're in sales thought process, because people just equate sales to being gross. Here's the biggest thing is, and I'm going to go back to the doctor analogy because it's so powerful, is when you view yourself as a professional, which I'll talk about sales not being a profession in a second, but when you view yourself as a professional, then you take a different stance. And I have this thing I actually copywrote, which is called the Authentic Persuader Oath. And when you do that, you know that it's your duty and responsibility to leave people better than you found them, which means once you find out that they have an issue or a goal that you can help with, you actually owe it to them to help them. And I have an acronym, DUTY, D-U-T-Y, driven until the yes. You now have to move them forward, or you've let them down. Even if they're stuck, you have to move them forward. And it's not because of you. This is what I joke about all the time. There's 8 billion people on the planet. I don't need you to buy anything from me. I just don't want to see you keep getting worse, right? Or whatever it is. But you have to do that same way. And this helps so many people once you visualize this. Same way that doctor goes through that exam, goes through everything, runs the test, comes back and says, we did our process. You have a tumor. And here's a business card, and here's a brochure about tumors. I'm sure you have to check on this. I'm sure you have to research and think about it. By the way, if you get the tumor, if we do the surgery before the end of the quarter, we'll give you 10% off and some free meds. Like, no, that's absolutely not what they say. They say, you've got this. This is bad. You have any questions before we begin? Who do you need to call? Clear your calendar. We're going in right now, right? And that doesn't feel gross because they followed a process that puts you first, and they're treating it like a profession. And so when you have something that will help somebody, you just assume we're going this way and I'm going to help you. Which also means, and I have a chapter in my book about this, is that when you can't help somebody, you owe it to them to tell them no, right? And there's a lot of power in telling the wrong people no, because when you tell somebody yes, you mean it, and here we go.
Yeah. Wow. I'm taking something. Look, screenshot my notes. I'm just taking so many notes here. I had to bust out we do have a responsibility when we say yes to someone to help them through it. Right. That's just doing life. And that doctor analogy that you're giving, and that really should bring some fresh air to us in sales, because we're all in sales in a way, right? I'm a master life coach. I'm pretty private. I help executives and stuff when they're struggling, right? But if I've said yes, I can help you, then I'm in it. I'm in it until your boots are muddy and you're walking forward, right? But I also have to be able to be willing to say, it's not me that you need. It's not me that you need. And that's for their benefit, right? That's for their benefit. So I can just relate to you so much. And I know a lot of people sitting at the table with us today, they can relate to that. And then maybe that just empowered you, if you're listening today, that you owe it to say, I'm not the surgeon for you. I can't do the surgery, right? But I know someone who can, right? Or I'm your surgeon and I follow the process. I really love the way you marry the empathy, the relationships, and the process together, and that you're not off balance. I think that's phenomenal. Well, thanks for spending time with us today. I won't keep you any longer. I know that you've got things to do there in Florida, and you've got people to help that you promised you would help them.
Yep.
But thank you for leaving us better than you found us, and thank you for helping us to understand that selling is not gross, only if you think of it in the right way, by balancing those two things.
Yep.
So I appreciate you,
Jason.
me. Until next time, podcasters, we'll see you at the leadership table, at the Etech Leadership table. Grab your favorite drink, your favorite snack, and come up. We have some hot topics on standby.